Explore the vibrant arts and culture landscape of Michigan, a state with a thriving creative ecosystem that has birthed iconic movements like Motown and the Purple Rose Theater. Home to legendary musicians, writers, and artists, Michigan boasts a rich tapestry of cultural heritage known worldwide. Michigan Creates is a podcast series that will connect listeners with gifted artists and cultural institutions that are nurturing Michigan's vibrant creative landscape. Hi everyone, Ara Topouzian, host of Michigan Creates. And today's program is a special one for me because I interviewed a fellow musician. We've got a lot more in common as musicians than you might think, and you'll discover that when we start the podcast. I'm going to be talking to Victor Ghannam. And Victor is a Middle Eastern virtuoso musician. We'll also discover that as well. So come on along and let's talk to Victor. Well, Victor, it is a pleasure to talk to you for so many reasons. We should probably address the elephant in the room, which is both you and I play the same instrument. Now, the difference is certainly you play multiple instruments, and we're going to get to that. And in my eyes, you're a much better musician than I am. And but we're part of the same brotherhood, if you will, because there's not many of us that play this particular instrument that we will get to. We'll let people kind of stay in suspense. But thanks for coming on today and talking to me. It's definitely good to see you.
Well, it's a pleasure on my part, and to be able to join you and have a nice chat, and to be able to address your audience on this podcast, which I wish you the very best in this
Thank
endeavor.
you. Thank you.
You-
We'll definitely have some fun with this. So, okay, we got to talk about your background first before we get into the sort of the musical aspects of your life. So, you're Palestinian. That's your ethnicity, correct?
Yes, American born in Detroit.
Okay. And so how did your family make it to the United States? So, of course, being Armenian, we've all got stories of, we're all immigrants. Um, but I'd be curious to hear maybe your family story of coming to United States.
Well, it's probably a story, I'm sure it's been told all over, and people that come and immigrate to the United States, they came, and the year was 1953, in search of a better life. And, in particular, the Detroit area was known to provide a lot of jobs. And then, once one or two people from the family or the community, in our case, it was the town of Ramallah in the West Bank.
Right.
It's kind of like, if you know the history of that town, it's a big city, by the way, and it started with seven brothers, and
Hmm.
according to folklore, everyone is related if you trace it back, from its inception. But yeah, they came 1953, and the typical immigrant worked hard and then saved
Yep.
money to open a business, and yeah.
And this is how now you're here.
Oh yeah.
You're here and your family's here. So, as a musician, Victor, are there any other musicians in your family? I mean, well, let me ask that first, and then I've got a follow-up to that.
Okay, well, my older brother, who's about 4 years older than me, we used to jam together a lot, and he was a fine musician in his own right. And then he got busy learning how he could fix anything, and he ran steel plants, he ran tool and die shops. Then he moved down. He had a very successful, window blind manufacturing operation, and he kind of got away from music. He piddles around here and there, but I wish he stayed with it.
Yeah.
And
So
then
no,
my son, my grandson,
yeah.
both of my sons are into the music.
So no grandparents, uncles, parents, they weren't playing music. They weren't interested in music.
No, not really. My father, you could say he was an amateur musician, a music lover for sure.
Right.
Back home, he used to hang around the radio station. He got to know all the people there, and the entertainers, and even in the Detroit area, God rest his soul. If anyone would be here on tour, he somehow, they even heard his name. where's this man named Sammy? He's a friend of every artist. We keep hearing about him. He just opens his heart, opens his house.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
terrific.
yeah,
So,
he's
so as a young man, you and your brother were interested in music, and in particular, we're talking Middle Eastern music, which is near and dear to my heart. Playing all sorts of genres of Middle Eastern music. Um, what was your what was your first instrument? What were you playing as a child?
well. You're too young. I don't know. You might have heard of the Ed Sullivan Show back in the
Yeah, of
'60s.
course. Yeah. But you're right. I was too young, but I know
Yeah.
of Ed Sullivan.
Anyway, I guess Elvis Presley was a guest, and he was playing on the guitar, and swivel hips and all that. And then somehow I said, "Boy, I've got to get me one of those." I kept bugging my parents. I was about 4 years old, and then
Yeah.
finally they bought me a cheap plastic guitar. I don't know how much it cost, and I started to play it. And then my father saw, he saw that I had an interest and I had something, and he went and bought me the oud, which is, you
Right.
know, fretless, the Arabic version, the Turkish, the Armenian, the Greek version of the guitar.
Right.
And then I just, I'm self-taught,
Okay.
and I was playing rock and roll throughout, junior high, high school, and Beatles,
Yeah.
Stones, and all of that. Yeah, guitar was my first instrument. Then I started to play the oud.
Yeah. So when did you transition into playing the oud? Is that after in high school or college?
Oh, no, 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 way before that. I was still
Okay.
young. Yeah.
Okay. And were you playing Middle Eastern music
Oh,
on oud, or were you playing rock at all, or a little bit of both?
well, rock on occasion if I got in the mood. Yeah, I would do crazy things. But I mean, soon after that, I would say, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, he bought me my first oud, and I played that for many years. Qanun was the latest instrument that I learned how to play,
Right.
years later as an adult.
And we're gonna talk about that in a minute too. Of
Mm.
course, that's where you and I have the brotherhood connection, if you will,
Oh,
too.
yeah.
But so talk to me about playing Middle Eastern music. I mean, what was that like? What was that experience like for you? The enjoyment I'm sure you get from playing it. Being a self-taught musician is not easy. I mean, Middle Eastern music, folkloric music, even some of the classical. I mean, some of that music is written, some of it is not.
Yeah.
So, what was your process for being a self-taught musician?
Well, we have what we call taksim, which is a lot of improvising. And, I'll be honest with you, it took me years to get the feel of it. I mean, I could play as much technique as you wanted or as you needed. And, if I had to look back in retrospect, you hear something and you play it. And of course, I dress it up in my own style, but it took years before I really felt it here in the heart.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
like, boom, something hit me, and then you start feeling it different. And then my problem, I didn't understand the lyrics. So I used to
Mhm.
listen to the vocals as another instrument, just like that.
Okay.
And then once I started, I forced myself to understand the language better. And then, I'm not too bad now, good enough. But, I was missing a lot of the beauty of the songs that I was playing. And then I started playing gigs, weddings, and, kind of a novelty. When I was really young, they would bring me to events to get up on the stage. And then I started to play regularly and steadily as a late teen. And then I, I started to play nightclubs, Middle
Mm,
Eastern nightclubs, which you learn so much. And, I was fortunate to learn a lot of these, the classical, which I love, the Arabic, the classical genre.
right.
And then I started to work with, one by one, these stars of, especially Lebanon. They would come, the famous singers. I'd have a chance to go on tour with them, and it was a nice experience. I got to travel a lot, and then I started doing studio work
Right.
for some television shows.
Well, before we get to that though, I guess we should clarify though. So when you're born in this country, were you born in Michigan?
Yes, Detroit.
Okay. So you have done your entire career playing Middle Eastern music here. So when you talk about playing some of these early gigs and playing in different bands and then progressively into nightclubs and then doing some studio work, Michigan was your home base.
Oh yeah.
Um, Talk about what those early gigs were like. I mean, you're still a young man, but you are a little bit older than me,
Uh,
um,
come on,
and
tell the truth, Ara.
yeah, and but there's definitely, I think we could certainly talk about, how things have changed
Oh,
for
things have changed. I mean, it
gigs.
started out, weddings. I'm sure when you play a wedding, it's a lot of dance music and the depth where they stand, the lines and
Yep.
the circle. It's pretty basic. A lot of the music is basic, and when you're doing concerts and different types of events, there's a little bit more work involved in the music, and I really enjoyed some of the cross cultural things that I got involved in.
Right. And you
Yeah,
were
I did.
playing quite a bit years ago. I would imagine that's changed too. I mean, you have been a steady musician as far as I know, as far as playing all the time, but I got to imagine the amount of availability for gigs was a lot different when you were younger versus now. I know what it is for me, and I know for older Armenian generations that talk about the number of jobs that they played, band jobs, gigs that they played was, they would play a couple of nights a week, and then there were nightclubs and whatnot. What was that whole? I want to know that experience from your perspective. Were you playing how many nights a week were you playing music?
Oh, there was the old Prestige Club. He was
Yeah,
doing private events, first communions, baptisms, engagement parties, weddings, even. There was a stretch, at certain times of the year, 5, 6, 7 nights a week we were working.
yeah,
And that's
that
in addition to
imagine.
my other, I always had another job, another career. I always did it for fun. I was
Right,
able to enjoy it because I didn't need to depend on it.
right, right. I sometimes use the phrase professional hobby
Yeah.
of
Oh,
sorts
that's
because it doesn't necessarily keep the bill the lights on and pay the bills, but it's something that we, are
Oh
passionate
yeah,
about.
and don't mind. I mean, I want to borrow that phrase from you. I like that.
Yeah, professional hobby. It sounds pretty good. Then
It does. Oh yeah, and it's right to the point.
it is really true. So let's go from you played a lot of gigs, play a lot of different gigs. How has that changed now? I know you're doing, and I want to talk about sort of some of the different genres you played, and certainly the classical Arabic music and folk music that you play. But talk about really what's changed over the years, maybe the last 30 years of playing music. Are you playing as much as you did when you were younger?
No, I can't say I am.
Yeah,
I've slowed it down. You get older. I've had a chance. I've been in. I think I counted 22 countries. I was able to travel, and we performed overseas, South America, Central America, Europe, Middle East, and then we did some flamenco collaborations. I have a few CDs with a
yeah,
guitarist, Jaco Muller. He's an amazing composer and flamenco guitarist, and that was a lot of fun. And he's bugging me to do another CD with him and
that's
some
good.
shows.
Keep
Yeah,
playing.
what's
It,
that?
you got to keep playing. You got to keep
I
playing.
know.
You're too young to quit. That's for
Well,
sure.
I always worked a lot too in my other jobs, and I mean I'm slowing it down too as well. I mean
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm a little kind of semi-retired if you
Nah.
compare it to how much I used to work before. But
Well, I think
yeah,
that's
pick and
changed
choose.
for
Then I got involved with the National Arab Orchestra. That's a whole
yeah,
different ball game. You talk 30 some musicians on a stage, or sometimes the smaller ensemble.
yeah.
5, 6 musicians. We that's more into the classic vein, and then the studio work I've done through the years. And
Talk about that because you've done a lot of studio work and you've done work for motion picture and television. Share some of, what, if we were to watch some movies and some old television shows, where would we hear Victor's music?
Well, there was a Stars Network. I'm sure you've heard of these shows. They were each time they were the number one show in the world. They said first was Hercules: Legendary Journeys with Kevin Sorbo,
Hmm.
and then the spinoff from that was Xena with the ex warrior princess Lucy Lawless. I
Yep.
did quite a few episodes, a lot of recording for those two, and then we did the Spartacus series, which was on
Okay.
Stars Network as well. Which I heard through the grapevine. It's not announced yet, but I guess they want to bring it back. So I was told I will be doing some more work
Hey,
for
that's
the new
terrific.
Spartacus. Yeah.
See, you got all those residual checks. It
No,
keeps you.
no, no, no. I'm not the composer. I was hired as a session musician, each time. So
Right.
I
Right.
wish.
So you've played, let's talk about some of the different genres that you've performed. So, a few minutes ago you talked about playing flamenco and of course Middle Eastern and so forth.
Jazz.
In jazz, there's such a similarity in all of that music. Especially, you talked about Taksim and the translation of that is improvisation for those that don't know what that is. And so the true art of a musician's knowledge of an instrument is how he or she plays a Taksim, right?
Oh yeah,
And
it's whatever you're feeling at that particular moment, right then and there.
right. And
Yeah.
and for the listener understands the skill. It's really the test. I mean, anybody could play a song. But that improvisation really shows the true colors of the ability of the musician. That carries forward into jazz, into flamenco. I mean, talk a little bit about that. I mean, what is it that you've enjoyed about playing in those different genres? Do you have a favorite genre outside of Arabic music?
Well, favorite genre is whatever I'm doing at the moment. I mean,
Right.
I guess I had the advantage I might have had if I wanted to give myself an advantage was the fact I was born here. I was exposed to some of and I always had a fascination with Latin music and Spanish music, flamenco when I was a kid, and I wanted to do more with it when I was really young. But the problem, there weren't too many Arabic musicians. They were from the Middle East, and they weren't too flexible about new styles. Where I was more open, and then. I mean, no matter what I'm doing, who I'm performing with, I take the attitude that I want to blend in. I want to feel, if it's a singer, I want to feel his emotion and react with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And take his personality. And if it's my show, I'm obviously in charge of guiding everything. But I try to adapt and adjust to anything, and then flow. I don't want to play like a robot ever.
Right. Right. And
Uh-huh.
and that's interesting. You are an American musician. I mean, you're born and bred here in Michigan, and sometimes some might frown upon that as far as playing world music, if you will, because they feel we don't have the soul for it or the heart
Yeah.
for it. And I've watched you play many times, and certainly have seen concerts and even videos online, and you embody definitely the music that you play. And it's really interesting that you commented earlier about not knowing the lyrics, at least when it's coming to a lot of the Middle Eastern music, and that was a detriment a little bit for you to kind of get the feel for it. I've heard that within Armenian music. To be honest, I can understand some of it. I can't speak Armenian, but I have some difficulty in knowing the meaning behind the songs that we
Mhm.
play. And I do
You
think
know,
something gets lost there because what is it that you're adhering your heart to? Is it just the notes, or is it the true definition or the meaning of the song? So that's definitely given you a leg up to really understand a lot of that music.
oh yeah, and the voice and the vocals becomes another instrument for
Yeah.
folks like us, and when we we were playing the way we did without understanding the lyrics. But it's all good. I've had a blast with these collaborations. You know, we worked. The world music is just wide open, as you well know. You know, I've
Right.
worked with Chinese musicians,
Yeah.
Serbian. We've done some performances, you know, and French.
Yeah.
You know, in
Armenian
Armenian. Yeah, I
on
was
that.
getting last but not least.
Last but
Well, I
not
should have
least.
named a few before I named the Armenian, but you know, and the last CD I did with Yako, who lives in the Netherlands, we had vocals in 4 different languages,
Wow.
and it
That's
was just,
terrific.
you know,
Yeah.
it was a blast, you know.
So lately, a lot of your music, though, you've been doing, like you mentioned earlier, they're playing with the National Arab Orchestra that is led by Michael Ibrahim, that is also Michigan resident, and
Yes,
it's a
American born too.
American born, and a fantastic orchestra. And you've played both oud and kanun on
Yes.
that as well. What tell us about kind of the feeling when you're on stage and you're playing for sold out groups, audiences, playing classical music. That's got a different feel than playing other genres and, let's say, dance music that you would play at a wedding. What kind of feeling do you get when you're on stage with a massive orchestra playing this classical repertoire?
Well, obviously, you have to accept the fact you are a component of a big machine.
Right.
Everyone has a part. Everyone has to do his part correctly, and a lot of it. I mean, Michael, he's brilliant at what he does, and I wasn't the best music reader. I learned to play by ear, and all of his work, you have to read notes, which I couldn't read that well. You know, nothing like the musicians, the other ones, and then I would have to basically memorize everything. And then I started pushing myself to read a little bit, and you know, I can get by now. But you know, sight reading right on the spot, yeah,
Right.
I'd have a little hard time.
You got
But
a little homework. You got a little homework to do, basically, when
oh
you,
yeah, but hey, just you
yeah.
can only do your best. But I mean, I've been blessed. I can memorize anything.
Yeah. So
I can memorize.
let's talk about the instrument. So a bit ago you showed the oud that's sitting right next to you. Let's talk about that instrument first. You know, as you said, sort of the granddaddy to the guitar. Um,
Yes,
can you play a little bit for us to give us a little bit of an idea of the sound?
I could demonstrate.
Yep,
A little bit rusty. I've been
that's
playing
all right.
Cameron most of the time.
Where is this particular one made, Victor?
This one, believe it or not, I know you've heard of Viken Najarian.
Yeah.
This is made by his grandfather in Lebanon.
Oh, okay. Terrific.
It was a special gift to me, and I had Viken work on it and rework it, refinish it. It's one of my favorites, if not my favorite right now.
It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Wow.
Can you play a little bit for us?
Okay.
So Victor, that's beautiful. And
Thank you.
now, I certainly want to hear the kanun. It's the instrument you and I both share. We probably say it a few different ways. You pronounce it differently than I do. I think every ethnicity that plays this instrument, uh, you know, calls it something different or has a different sort of dialect with it. But really, whereas the oud was the granddaddy to the guitar, this is the granddaddy to the piano. And this is a beautiful instrument. Talk about this particular instrument and maybe describe what we're looking at.
Okay, this one is Turkish made. Learned it on an Arabic kanun, which is larger in size and has a totally different sound. And these mondials here, we call them Arab.
Yep.
We have maybe half of the amount that the Turkish ones have. You've got the microtones on this one, and you've got to do a lot of switching when you play, as you well know. But the Turks, they make a high quality. It's a
They
high
do.
quality instrument. Some of the Arabic kanuns are sloppy. They sound great, and then you start having trouble later on with the pegs don't hold the tuning. I have a nice one from Syria, and I had a nice one from Egypt that I sold. I wish I kept it, but no, this one very well made, and it has a built-in pickup into it. You see underneath the bridge.
Right. It's an acoustic instrument. And yeah, it's definitely beautiful. All right, Victor, I want to definitely hear you play this instrument. So whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, need more room for my elbows here.
Victor, your playing is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have a favorite instrument, oud or kanun? The big question, which is better, right?
Well, I played oud longer, actually, more years, but I mean, people force me to answer that question. If I had to, I would say my main instrument would be the oud. Yeah,
Okay. Well, you
yeah.
wouldn't know it by your playing.
Oh, thank you.
And really here in Michigan, not many of us, right, playing the instrument. I don't know that there's more than honestly, I think it's just you and I that play
I
kanun.
think that's it. Yeah, I mean,
Hey,
it's,
that's good.
it's
We
a
got we
brotherhood,
got the market cornered.
fraternity.
Yeah, until we get older. Victor, it's always a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate you coming on my program and I'm a fan of your music and enjoy
Oh,
listening to you play. And I wish you many more years of great playing. And you know what? It's been a long time since you and I played a gig together, so we'll have to figure that out one of these
let's.
days. So thank you.
I wish we do something. Yeah, I want to tell you. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you had me on your show, and I look forward to seeing you one of these days and performing. And I wish you the very best, Ara.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Michigan Creates. We hope you've had fun diving into the creativity of our state. From Motown melodies to artisanal wonders, Michigan never fails to dazzle. But hey, the creativity doesn't stop here. Connect with us online, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes. Help us spread the word and also share your own artistic stories. So until next time, I'm Ara Topouzian, and I want you to keep those musical instruments in tune, keep those paintbrushes moving, and keep those cameras rolling. Remember, in Michigan, the only limit is your imagination. Stay creative.